Begin the current Daf Masechtas Beruchas Daf Tezayin. Begin 5 lines down at the top of the Yomit, but we quickly review Daf Tezvav. We spoke about two-way machlekes in the previous Mishnah regarding if you need to hear the words that you're saying, regarding the interpretation of the word Shema, and also if you need to be medactic by yourself, you have to be precise with the words that you're saying. Additionally, we spoke about, which is going to be the halacha we're going to be starting on today's Daf, regarding you cannot. One halacha was you can't read Lamafreya, you can't read it backwards, but also the halacha that we're going to be mentioning is ta. If you made a mistake, you go back to the place that you made the mistake. Now the Gemara had a lengthy discussion, Amud Aleph, Amud Beis, a machlekes between Rabbi Yisrael and Yehuda. In our Mishnah, we said, do you have to hear the words of Kriya Shema or not? The Gemara brought many different Mishnayos and Brises regarding different halachas to say who is the Tana of that Brise of that Mishnah, again, depending on how do we really interpret Rabbi Yisrael and Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. When Rabbi Yehuda said you're Yaitz, Rabbi Yisrael said you're not Yaitz. Was that like a tchila? Was that? But ultimately the Gemara ended up concluding a three-way machlekes. You have Rabbi Yisrael who holds that even b'diavad you're not Yaitz if you don't hear the words that you're saying. You have Rabbi Yehuda and his Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah who says, look at tchila, initially you should hear the words that you're saying, but after the fact you are Yaitz. And then we had Rabbi Meir who said that no, even like at tchila you don't have to hear the words that you are saying. And that was the similar discussion on the page regarding a cherish that's possible reading the Megillah. And then we concluded with uchsavtem v'lemadatem, which related to the halacha of being medactic by siyaseh, which is the second halacha in that Mishnah. Uchsavtem means say a complete writing. You have to write all the words in the Kriya Shema and the Tefillin and the mezuzahs. Even the instructions go into that. What you should do. And v'lemadatem, which is your limud, your learning, your reading, should be tam. That means you should stop between al levavecha, al levavchem. You should interrupt between. That was the teaching that we had from that. Now, some of the ideas we're going to be learning about today on Daf Tezayin, which we're going to be discussing, as we said, the continuation of the Mishnah regarding kar of ta'ah. If you made a mistake and you go back to your chayzer, the Gemara is going to have many different cases because it is a biblical commandment, that of Kriya Shema. The question is, if one makes a mistake, where is the person going to be going back to? Then we're going to be continue, as we say on number 2 over here, a new Mishnah. Continuing on the theme of kavana. That is regarding different cases of individuals. When do we say that that is sufficient kavana for Kriya Shema, and when do we say that they don't have kavana, therefore they're not obligated in Kriya Shema? Then we're going to be talking about in the Gemara differentiation between workers and the self-employed person who doesn't have the exemption of umnin. When someone's working for someone else, he can't always go ahead and say and do certain halachas because he has obligations to his employer. Then we have a contradiction actually. Does Kriya Shema require kavana or not? Which is a contradiction between our Brisa and the Mishnah. The Gemara can end up explaining it's not a contradiction and qualify the halacha of our Mishnah. Then the Gemara is going to be discussing certain workers' leniencies in halacha, as we mentioned, regarding what is their obligations to their employer, and therefore they can't just say every type of tefillah because they're obligated to their job. And then the Gemara is going to conclude discussing the previous Mishnah regarding a chassan that's pater from Kriya Shema, which is one of the cases, as we mentioned on the previous stuff. It's specifically when you're asik b'mitzvah, pater b'mitzvah, when you have a tirda, the mitzvah, you have to have 2 criteria. Then the next Mishnah is going to continue on the theme of the previous Mishnah regarding the Rabbi Gamliel. He was different than most. Although the halacha of the previous Mishnah had a certain obligation, he said he's different. And the next Mishnah mentions 2 different halachas that he also considered himself different than everyone else. And then the Gemara is going to explain what the halachas that he did different, the source for that exemption that he was than everyone else. And then the Gemara is going to conclude with, which is going to go into a lot into the next daf, regarding tachnunim, certain supplications we say after that we daven, which we know we say l'kai netzar, and that many different tefillahs that we know throughout our tefillah based on that. Now, so again, we continue. We begin the current Daf Tezayin Manal, 5 lines Daf of the Yomid. We are co-sponsored by Thomas River Learning Center, Daf Chaim, and Torah Anytime. So our Gemara goes back to the halacha of our previous Mishnah and says, Hakari l'mafreya. Our Mishnah said if someone reads backwards, he says the words backwards, Visharecha, Beisecha, Mezuzahs. So the halacha is layotza v'chulu. He has not fulfilled his obligation. Now the reason why it says v'chulu, etc., because it's actually going on to the last of the 4 halachas of the previous Mishnah, which was ta'ah. On the next halacha, if someone made a mistake, so the halacha is chayz l'mekayim, goes back to his place that made a mistake. So the Gemara brings a story that will bring up this halacha in another version. Rabami v'Rabasi, these 2 Amiram, have a kakatron leganana. They were tightening a canopy. They mean they were making a chuppah to marry off Rabbi Elazar for Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar was the chassan, and these 2 Amiram were making the chuppah. So Amalahu, the chassan, in classic chassan style, said to them, look, at the hachi v'hachi, in the meantime that you're doing the work, Ezel v'eshma milsa de Beit Medrash, I'm going to go learn in Beis Medrash. V'esi v'emaluchu, I'm going to come back and tell you what I'm learning. You guys you're doing all the work, I'm the chassan, I'm sitting here like a melech. Let me go to yeshiva, I'll come back, I'll tell you what I learned. So Azal Ashkechel Tana, so he came and encountered a teacher of brises. Although the word Tana usually means a Tana, it sometimes means the teacher of the brises. The Tana Kamed Rabbi Yechon was teaching the following brise of under Rabbi Yechon. Kara B'tav, someone was reading the Shema, and he made a mistake. Ve'eni de Leichen Tag doesn't know where he made a mistake, so the Bach adds on these two words, Yachzel L'Reish. So you go back to the beginning, because you don't know where you made the mistake. You got to go for sure from where you had said. Now, let's say Be'emtza Parak, let's say he knew that in the middle of this chapter he made a mistake. He skipped something, but he doesn't know exactly where he skipped, what the mistake was. So then, Yachzel L'Reish goes back to the beginning of that chapter. Let's say Be'em Parak LeParak, let's say between chapters. In other words, he knows he finished a chapter. And he knows he has to start a next chapter, but he doesn't know which one it is. So Yachzel L'Parak Rishon, then he goes back to the first chapter, which is V'hayim Shemaya. Don't go back. You're not sure if you just finished V'havta or you just finished V'hayim Shemaya. So you're up to the next chapter. So do you go V'yamer? Do you go V'hayim Shemaya? Well, you don't know, so you go back to V'hayim Shemaya. Similarly, let's say Ben Ksiva L'Ksiva. Let's say he made a mistake. He knows he has to say Uchasavtam, but he doesn't know which Chasavtam am I saying? Saying the first parasha of Shema? Am I saying the second parasha of Shema? So says the Brisa, Yachzel Ksiva Rishon. You go back, and that's the halacha. You go back to the first Ksiva, that because it's a biblical obligation. You have a suffix Deraisa L'Chum. We go back to the first Uchasavtam. Now, that's what the Tana of the Bryce is taught in front of Rabbi Yechon. However, Rabbi Yechon said to that teacher of Bryces, Lo Yishana, we didn't learn whatever you just said, Elo Shaloi Pasach, only if you didn't open up B'laman Yirbu Yumechem, which is the last thing you say right before you say B'yamer, only if you didn't say those words yet. But if you already opened up B'laman Yirbu Yumechem, and it's a classic Machlekes Rishonim, we'll first explain how Rashi says it first. If you already said those words, Sirchei Nakad V'asi, then you already are doing it out of habit, meaning to say, you didn't make a mistake in Parsha Vayomer all the way up until Emes V'Yatzid. Because everybody knows these words. It's so fluid in everyone's words. You didn't make a mistake. So therefore, if you're not sure, you can go to Emes V'Yatzid. You don't have to go back in the Parsha Vayomer. You didn't make a mistake. That's how Rashi interprets it. Because everyone knows it's better than the first two Parsha of Kriya Shema. But a classic interpretation of the Rishonim is that no, if you're mindlessly saying Shema and you're up to those words, then obviously you got up to there. I mean, if you're not sure if you're up to Chasavtim, you don't know which one it is, so you go back to the first one. But many times we do mindless davening, and if you're saying the words Aman Yirbu Yumechem, I don't remember how I got here, but if you're so habitual in that, if you said those words, then probably you said all the right words, your habit took you over there, and if you don't have to suspect, and if you could just continue going where you woke up. So the Gemara continues, the Asav Amalhu, so Rabbi Elazar came along and he said to them, this teaching that he heard in the yeshiva. Amalei, they said to him, oh wow, if we had only come to hear this teaching, Dayan would be enough for us. Wow, it's amazing. That's such a cool teaching regarding this, regarding making a mistake and where you have to go back. And also that this halach of Sircha B'Naked V'Asi, that we assume that your habit took you over there. Now continuing the next Mishnah. That would mean that he said Shema without Kavanah. Well, you don't have to say Kavanah by the second parasha. Right, it could be he said, so you're asking regarding Kavanah, it could be that he had Kavanah in the first pasuk, but then later on, and that's how we ruled, the way Taisa says, that later on you don't have to have Kavanah. Good question. So the Gemara continues with the next Mishnah, again, continuing on this theme that you just brought up, regarding Kavanah. This theme about that Kriya Shema has to have focus. So the Mishnah says the following exemptions. Ha'umnin, the workers, they are busy doing their work, and it's man Kriya Shema. So the halacha says the mission, this is the halacha. Kairin, they could recite the Kriya Shema immediately over there where they are working. Bereisha Elon on the top of a tree, or Bereisha Nidvach on the top of a wall of stones. There could a lot of continue saying Kriya Shema in their workplace, even though it's on top of a tree. Now, Masha Einu Rishon Lasikim B'Tfilah, which they're not allowed to do for davening, because davening is something beseeching mercy, and that has to have intent. So therefore, you're not allowed to daven. I'll say Shemona Esrei on top of a tree or on top of a wall of stones, because a person's afraid he might fall and he can't stand there. He has to be very, very delicate, very careful, and because he's afraid he can't focus. Kriya Shema is an exemption because really Kriya Shema only you have to have focus, as we were just answering, is really only the first pasuk. So for that you could contain yourself with that one pasuk, but for davening that you're not allowed to do. Additional halacha regarding Kriya Shema and Kavanah is Chasen Patim Kriya Shema Laila Rishayna. A groom, the first night of his wedding, is exempt from saying Kriya Shema. Vad Matzah Shabbos, till 4 nights later, they used to get married. Besul and Nisas Lamer Avi, they used to get married on a Wednesday night. So for the next 4 nights, all the way up until Matzah Shabbos, he's exempt from saying Kriya Shema. Im lo yasa ma'aseh. If he did not do the act of consummating the relationship, so he's still worried. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So therefore, he's exempt again because he can't have Kavanah. Now, there was a story of Gamliel, Shanasi, she married a woman, but he said Kriya Shema the first night, the night of his wedding. The student said to him, our teacher, you taught us, we just said, I'm not going to listen to you, that I should stop accepting the yoke of heaven, even one moment. Now, Tesa points out, usually the Gemara asks, Maisa Listerhu, you bring a story that contradicts the halacha you just said. So he says, no, the Mishnah is telling us the chiddush. If someone's a great person and he's confident that he could have kavanah and he's able to take a malchus shemayim, then he's allowed to do it. Now, of course, we pass and we rule that the chassan says kriyishma because we don't have kavanah anyway. But in basic halacha, then one is not supposed to bring Leal, who was a great person, was able to do it because he was able to focus even on the night of his wedding. So the Gemara now brings a brisa that explains and qualifies the halacha of our Mishnah. Turn about the brisa. A worker could say kriyishma, as we said in the Mishnah, bereish ilan and bereish nidvach, on top of a tree and on top of a wall of stones. Now, here is what we didn't say in the Mishnah. Umispal, and he could say Shemayin Esrei. Although we said Shemayin Esrei, he can't be on a regular tree, on a regular wall of stones, but he could daven Shemayin Esrei bereish hazayis, on top of an olive tree, or bereish hatena, on top of a fig tree. Even as they're doing the work. Now the reason is because those type of trees have many branches. You could stand over there not so pressed, and it's not such a fear of falling down. So therefore, there you're allowed to daven even there on the top. But you're right, but other trees, as the Brisa continues to say, B'shar Keilanas, Yerdim Lamatim Espan, like we said in the Mishnah. When our Mishnah said he can't daven on the tree, it's like a regular tree, which you've got to really steady yourself and balance on a branch. But you get these huge network of branches like an olive tree or on the fig tree, then you could go ahead and even daven there on the top. But other trees you have to come down and daven. Now that's regarding a worker, because he has obligations to his employer. Or balabais, but a regular homeowner, meaning a regular person, in either situation, whether it's on a fig tree, whether it's other trees, Yer Lamatim Espal, he has to come down and he has to daven because he's not obligated as a worker to somebody else. He's in his own domain, what we call self-employed. And he has to come down. Why does he have to come down? Because he can't really focus because he's afraid. If we're going to be lenient regarding workers, that's only simply because of they have obligations to their employer. We weren't lenient regarding a balabais, and therefore he always has to come down. Now, however, Rami Lay, it was posed as a contradiction. Rav Mari Barad Bas Shmuel. Rav Mari, he was the son of the daughter of Shmuel, which is interesting. Many times you find in Shas, he's called the son of Rachel, who is the daughter of Shmuel. Now, why are we calling him the daughter? Where do you find in Shas that you call someone after his mother? Is because his mother was taken in captivity by the nations, meaning by non-Jews, by Gentiles, as the Gemara says, and one of the captors had relations, and she became pregnant, and then afterwards that man, that non-Jew, that Gentile, converted, and his name was Isra, as the Gemara says in Baba Basra. And Rav Mari, his son, was conceived by the non-Jewish father. His father only later converted, so he can't be called on his father. He doesn't have that yichus, he doesn't have the lineage, and therefore he's called Mari, the son of the daughter of Shmuel. So he posed the following contradiction, l'Rava to Rava. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, our Mishnah, that the worker could say Kriya Shema on the top of a tree, on the top of a wall of stones, even when he's doing his work. You see, which was a question someone had asked just before on the previous sukkah, that you see you don't have to have kavanah when you're saying Kriya Shema. A worker could be just working and doing it and saying Kriya Shema. But for me, that seems to be contradicted from the following brayso. Hakariya Shema, someone who says Shema, he has to focus. He has to focus his heart. Now, like it says in the pasuk in Devarim, Shema Yisrael, hear O Israel. Now, where do you see from their kavanah? So says the Gemara. Because later on, there's a pasuk that says Haskis U'Shema Yisrael. When it says the word Shema Yisrael, it says together with Haskis. Now, Malahal and Bahaskis, just like over there, Haskis means to say like really be focused and bring yourself together. Afkan Bahaskis, also over here, it means that you have to focus. So you see, Kriya Shema has to focus. So what's the halacha? It seems to be a contradiction, our Mishnah and the Brisa. Says Gemara Ishtik, Rabbi was silent. He didn't have a good answer. So Amalei, so then Rabbi said back to him, Midi Shmilach Baha, did you hear anything regarding this? A good question. Amalei said, Hochem Rav Shesha says, this is what Rav Shesha said. Bahu, this heter of our Mishnah that says that the worker is allowed to say Kriya Shema on top of a tree is Shebetela Mimalachton V'Kairen. It's that, yes, he stops working when he has to say that, and then he says it, so that he can focus when he's saying it. He's allowed to stop working. So although we not let him come down, that's going to take way too long to come down from the tree because he's not going to be working all that time, but we do let him stop working because the halacha would require at least being mitzamtzim yourself enough that you have a kavanah when you're saying Kriya Shema. That's the answer. But the Gemara continues to ask, even on that answer. But Tanya Lin Brisa we quoted previously in Daf Yomi from Nalf. Beis Hillel Imrim that oiskin b'malachtan v'kairin. You're allowed to be doing your work, and you're allowed to be saying Kriya Shema. Like we said, they say you could continue doing whatever you're doing and say Kriya Shema. So you see that you don't have to stop doing your work. You're allowed to continue doing work and saying Kriya Shema. How do we understand that with the Brisa that says you have to have kavanah? Says the Gemara, Loikash is still not a difficulty, and that's what we wrote at the board. There's two criteria. Haba perik rishon. That is by the first chapter, meaning when you're saying Shema, then you have to have kavanah, which Taisa points out that's actually not the case. It's lav dafka, it really means the first pasuk, not the first parak. But by the first parak is where we said that, yes, that's when you have to stop doing your work. And that's when we say the permissibility of saying Kriya Shema on top of a tree. Habaperik Sheni. When Beis Hillel said you let it continue doing your work, you don't have to stop doing your work, that's by the second chapter. So therefore that's what we said, that the halacha is that, yes, although we said in our Mishnah that they could say the Krishma on the tree, but it's Batelim and Malachim, they have to stop doing their work. And however, that halacha of stopping doing their work is specifically by the first chapter, but by the second chapter you can continue doing your work. Now the Gemara continues with certain leniencies regarding workers. As we were talking about regarding leniencies, regarding them saying the Shemoneh Esrei or the Shema. So I try to learn the Brisa. Hapailim shahayu eisen malacha etzel balabais. You have workers that are working for a homeowner, for an employer. So the halach is, current Krishma, they could say Krishma, that's not considered stealing time from their employer. They can make the bracha beforehand and afterwards, like the Beruchas Krishma, like is the halacha, and also in the zman of Krishma and Tefillah. They could eat their bread. They could make a bracha before hamaitzi, make a bracha afterwards, and they could bench. Meaning that, and you see how severe it is. Ramchal Masil Shama is very busy with that. You have to be careful. Time that you're getting paid for, can't just do whatever you want to do. You have obligations. Okay, there are certain things that obviously in society we understand in the sense of normalcy, but there are certain obligations you have, and therefore we have to tell you, you're allowed to make a bracha on a piece of bread before and after. You're allowed to go ahead and daven Shemoneh Esrei. Now, you're not allowed to go ahead and daven for the Yomid. You're not allowed to go ahead and just waste time from your employer and daven for the Yomid, be the shlich tzibur, because that's wasting more time than otherwise, because to be the shots takes more time. You can't, even if you're kind, you can't do duchen, you can't do nesias kapayim. That's what we see, that certain leniencies regarding the worker, that you can't just do certain things. You have to be obligated to your job. Now, but the problem is, Vatanya in the Brisa, a contradiction with the previous Brisa. This Brisa says, all those halachas, it says that the Shemoneh Esrei that the worker does is mi'ein yodches, is an abridged version of yodches, which means Shemoneh Esrei, which is a bracha called Havinenu Lodas Derachecha, which you say the first three brachas regular, the last three brachas regular of Shemoneh Esrei, and the middle brachas you say in one big condensed bracha, which you include all the 11 brachas in one bracha. So what do? Does the worker say the whole Shemoneh Esrei, or only the abridged version of Shemoneh Esrei? The previous brisa said the whole. This one says me'ein. Says the Rav Sheish says loikash is not difficult. In this answer number one, Harab Gamliel, the brisa that says that you say the whole Shemoneh Esrei is Gamliel. Harab Yeshua, the second brisa that says that you only say me'ein yutches is Rabbi Yeshua, which we learned later on in the Mishnah on Perek Tefillah Sashachad of Chav Chasam Abeis, that we have this machlekes. Gamliel says every single day a person has to say the whole Shemoneh Esrei like we say it. Yeshua says no, a regular person could say what's called me'ein yutches. He could say this abridged Shemoneh Esrei every single day. So therefore, that's the machlekes. The first brisa is going like Gamliel. The second one's going like Rabbi Yeshua. But says the Gemara, wait a second. If you're telling me the second brisa says that the worker says me'ein yutches on the bridge version, so Rabbi Yeshua, if you're saying it's like Rabbi Yeshua, my area pailim, then why would the brisa be telling me specifically a worker? He says me'ein yutches. Rabbi Yeshua holds every single person. It's not specifically a worker. So Ella rather says the Gemara, if answer number two, you're right. Both brides are going like Gamliel. Not difficult. What do you mean? Didn't you say Gamliel says you have to say regular Shemoneh Esrei? Yes, but a worker doesn't have to. And what's it talking about? What do you mean? Doesn't the first brisa also mention a worker? They're both talking about workers. Yeah, it depends what type of a worker. Kan ba'isen b'scharan. When did we say that you could say the abridged version of Shemoneh Esrei, and actually you have to, is when they're getting paid for their work besides the meal that they get in the cafeteria. Oh, you're getting paid money? Then you have to do your work fast, and you have to say an abridged version of Shemoneh Esrei. Kan ba'isen sudasen. When did we say that you could say a regular Shemoneh Esrei? They don't get paid. They just get food. So such a type of a worker is not such a high maintenance work. You're not getting paid so much. So then you're allowed to take a longer Shemoneh Esrei. And the Gemara says, Vatanya, similar in the Brisa, that there is such a difference between someone who's getting paid and someone who's just getting food for his work. The Brisa says, if a worker is working by the employer, current krishma misbound. So he could say krishma, he could daven, and they eat their bread. The aim of varchan lefanel. Listen to this. He doesn't even make a bracha before he eats the bread, because it's not a biblical commandment to make a bracha before you eat the bread. But you do make the bracha after you eat the bread, which that's biblical, like it says in the pasuk, like the Gemara says later on. So it says the Brisa Shtaim, and you don't even say a full Beruchas Hamazon. How do you do it? Keitzad. So bracha rishon kitikuna. So the first bracha of Hazan that you say regular. Shnia, the second bracha of Neidilcha. So you open up the regular way as blessing Hashem for the land, which is the bracha of Neidilcha. V'kailin, and then you include two brachas in one. B'nei Yerushalayim, b'birchas haaretz. You include the third bracha, b'nei Yerushalayim, in the bracha b'irchas haaretz, because ultimately they're very similar. Both are talking about Eretz Yisrael. One's more specific Yerushalayim than Eretz Yisrael, and actually the sages have the ability to uproot a biblical mitzvah b'irchas hamazon, because yes, you have obligations to your employer. Now, says the Brisa, when did we say this? that it's so stringent, that's ba'isen b'scharan. That's when you're getting paid money for your work. That's when it has the stringencies that you can't just go and say every tefillah. But if they're just getting they're getting the meal ticket, or another case that would be lenient is if the homeowner, the employer is eating with the employees, then they would make brachas in the regular way. But again, you see that difference that we said, and you could say both brayos or milil. One brayso says that you make the full shema nesei, the other one says me'ein yotches. Depends what type of worker you are. If you're a worker that gets paid good money, you can't just say a full shema nesei. Or however, if you're a guy that you're not really getting paid, you're just getting your meal ticket, then you could go ahead and say a regular shema nesei. Now we continue with explain the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, now the first case that we spoke about regarding kavanah was a worker. The second case was regarding a chassan. Also has a challenge with kavanah. Chassan patim kriyishma. We said a chassan is exempt from saying kriyishma. So the Gemara brings the source for this halacha, which turn about when the Bryce, we already quoted this at length on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. But the Gemara quotes it again. It says in the pasuk of Shema, it says v'debartamam, you should speak in these words b'shevetcha b'beisecha when you're sitting in your house. Oh, says the Bryce. That excludes someone who's busy doing a mitzvah. When it says you're going on your road, prat l'chasen, that goes even one step further. What do you have to say? Another terminology is to exempt even a chasen who is not even doing something; he's actually just preoccupied in his headspace. But we can't number from here. They said, "Akaina says as a basula, if someone marries a virgin, pater is exempt from saying krishma." Besalmana. But if there's no problem about basulim, he's not concerned about the virginity, then chayv, then he's going to be obligated in saying krishma. Says the Gemara, my mashma. Where do you see from these words b'shivtcha b'veisecha b'vlechtecha b'derech that that's an exemption for someone who's involved and engaged and busy with something like getting married? So Amar Papi says because kiderech, it says the b'lechtecha v'derech. Now what ma derech, which is just like a path, is something that you have an option, it's voluntary. Here also, when the pasuk is saying that you have obligation kriyishma, is only when it's something that's voluntary. Then you're obligated. But when you're busy with a dvar mitzvah, then you don't have to say kriyishma. Says the Gemara, where do you see that from the word baderech? Milas, aren't we talking about the ka'azal dvar mitzvah? What do you mean? It talks about a road. You go on roads also to do mitzvahs. And still the Torah is saying, even on that road of a mitzvah, is still v'debartabam. How do you know when you're doing a mitzvah, you don't have to say kriyishma? Says the Gemara, imkain, no. If that would be the case, if that it would be even for a dvar mitzvah, you have to say kriyishma, lemikro v'leches. It should have said, when there's going. My belechtecha, what's your going? Shmami no, beleches didachad mechayebes, your personal, individual desire of going. That's when you're obligated. The mitzvah batis, but if you're going on the road of a dvar mitzvah, like a chassan, like anyone's engaged in mitzvah, then you actually pater from saying kriyishma. Now, as you continue to Beis, now the Gemara asks ihachim. Taisa explains what's the Gemara's question. Because if you would say, as the Gemara is going to shortly say, that the reason why someone who's getting married is exempt because he's tired, he's preoccupied, so I would understand why I'm not going to ask the question I'm about to ask. But if you just told me that the reason why a chas patim from kriyishma is because he's isik he's involved in the mitzvah, so then I have the following question. My iriya kind of says a basula. Why are you saying specifically someone who marries a basula? Then he's going to be part from kriyishma. Hafila kind of says amana nami. Then why? Someone who marries a widow, someone who was already married once before, is also his mitzvah. He's getting married. He's fulfilling the mitzvah of getting married to a woman. So why over there are you saying that you're going to be chayim in kriyishma? Says the Gemara, no, a different answer than we said before. Hachatarid. Here, by the one who's marrying a basula, he's preoccupied. It's a challenge. V'achalei tarid by amana, he's not preoccupied, and therefore you're not pater. Says the Gemara, okay, wait a second, you just changed, you shifted? You're saying it's not because of mitzvah, because he's preoccupied? Even because he's preoccupied, that's why you put them saying kriyishma. Even if his boat sinks at sea, he should also be exempt. So in a related thing, similar to the boat sinking, a mourner is chayiv, he's going to be obligated, even though he's tired, obviously, he's preoccupied with the loss of his relative, he's obligated all the mitzvahs said in Torah, including kriyishma. Chutz is one exemption that Aval is not chayiv and minat tefillin from tefillin. Sharinema ben pe'er, because it's used the terminology of pe'er, of glory regarding tefillin. And where do we see that? Like it says the pasuk about Yechezkel, pe'ercha, Hashem told him, you're different than all other mourners. Your glory, chavish alecha, should be dawned on you, b'goyim, etc. But we see that tefillin are called pe'er, which is dawned on the person. So because it's pe'er and afer don't really work well together, ashes that a mourner is in that type of situation, it's not. But every other mitzvah, including kriyishma, the mourner does say, wait a second, a mourner is tired. So why are you saying that a mourner is chayiv in kriyishma? They said, no, there's two qualifications. Hasam tirda de rishus, there by the boat sinking, and by the mourner, yes, he's preoccupied, but something of his own volition. Hach over here by the basula is a tirda de mitzvah. There's two criterion. One, he has to be preoccupied, which excludes the amana, and there has to be preoccupation with a mitzvah, which excludes an aval who doesn't have to be preoccupied in that way. He has to do certain mitzvahs, but he doesn't have to be tired, and also exempts that of the svina bayam, and therefore it's only by marrying a basul that is exempt from kriyishma. Now we continue with the next Mishnah. Continuing on the theme of the previous mission regarding that we said, the Gamliel considered himself different than the halacha. Previous Mishnah said that we have a chassan that's patur from Kriyishma, and Gamliel, he went and said Kriyishma. On that theme, we say different, unrelated halachas, but that relate to the same theme of Gamliel saying that he's different. Mishnah says the following halacha. Rachatz laila harishon shemesa ishtay. Gamliel, he went and he bathed himself the first night after his wife passed away. Now, although she was buried that day, and a mourner is forbidden to bathe himself, he bathed himself. What's the reason? So the Gemara says, and this is actually brought in halacha, that students are supposed to correct their teacher, but they're supposed to say it in a respectful way. Amr like Talmidav, his student said to him, Lamadatenu Rabbeinu, our teacher, you taught us. It's not saying you did the wrong thing, but you taught us that a mourner is forbidden to bathe. How is it possible? Is the inference that you wouldn't bathe the first night? So Amalami said to them, I'm not like everybody else. Istinis I'm a very delicate, finicky type of a person. And therefore I can't go without bathing. I need my shower. And therefore, even though it's the night after his wife passed away, he's taking a shower. Another similar exemption. When someone else dying, when his servant Tavi passed away, he accepted condolences for the loss. The student said to him, our teacher, you taught us. We're not supposed to accept, as Akramah will explain this halacha, condolences on the slave. How are you letting people console you? Let me said to them, my slave is not like all other slaves. Kasher, he's an upstanding person, and therefore I'm allowed to accept condolences. Now, it's a good question. If he's not an Eved, then what's the question? Yeah, good question. Here it seems like that he was an Eved. So yeah, could be it's related even to the yichus. Yeah, even if he was freed, that regarding the yichus. But you're right. It's from Tais actually would seem like from the Gemara we'll see later on that it's a problem of yichus, and if he's could be as we'll see in Tais actually that it is a problem, because if Tavi had a son, and if he's going to be Mekabel Tanchumen, then people are going to assume that he was a regular full-fledged Jew all the time, and the problem is one of yichus, as Tais explains. We'll see in the Gemara, and if the son was Tavi's son, he could be the son of a slave.
He had no relationship, therefore he was just like another Jew. What means that he was Mekabel Tanchumim? The idea here of Mekabel Tanchumim is that it's something personal. So this, even if he was Meshacher, why was he Mekabel Tanchumim as if something was personal?
Right, so we'll see in the Gemara that we do console a person for their losses. We'll get to the Gemara, we'll see in the Gemara. Good questions, and we'll see in the Gemara. Now the Gemara goes back to the halacha of the previous Mishnah regarding a chassan. We said is patur from Kriyishma. But now it says the Mishnah, a related halacha. Chassan imroitz likros Kriyishma la'ala rishayna. What's the halacha? Okay, you said a chassan the first night exempt from saying Kriyishma. What's if he wants to say Kriyishma? What's the halacha? So it's a machlekes. Tana Kama says Kari, you can say Kriyishma. Pshimim Lilam it says like roitz lital as hashamitel. Not everyone who wants to take the name of God can take it. We know that you can't focus. Don't go saying Kriyishma. That's machlekes. Well, the Tana Kama says you could say Kriyishma if you want to. You're exempt, but if you want, you could. It's not so fast. Now the Gemara now goes back to the first opening halacha of our Mishnah. We said Gamliel the first night after his wife passed away, he said Kriyishma. Says he bathed himself. Says the Gemara, my time in Rabbi Gamliel. What's the reason of Gamliel? Aval is not allowed to bathe. How was he allowed to? Says the Gemara, 2 points. First of all, Ksava he held Aninas Laila, the law of Avel is the night after. The Aninas is for 1 day. The night of that day, after that day, he held it's draban. It's rabbinic. So though it's the night of the day of death, and the halach of Aninas is mentioned in the Torah, it says in the Torah regarding Vidu Meiser in Devarim Chavav, Lo yichalti b'oinim mimin. I didn't eat the Meiser in my state of Aninas. Now, Aninas is not less than 1 day. So the night after, however, he held that that's actually not part of the biblical. The day is only the day. The night is not the 24-hour period. The night is actually only rabbinic. The chsiv, like it says in the pasuk in Amos, it says Vachrisa and its end, Ki yoy mar is like a bitter day, which Gamliel held that the night following that day is not considered part of that day. That night following is only rabbinic, like all the other days of Avelis. And therefore, since it's rabbinic, so when a person's a delicate person, the Rabbanah did not make that decree. So, although there's some machlekes tanoim Masechet Zvachim Daf Tzadik Tes Amud Beis, if the night following the day of the passing of Aninas, if that's biblical or rabbinic, Gamliel A held that it's rabbinic. Rabbinic already, the Rabbanah did not always make decrees they gave exceptions to certain things, and therefore, since he's an Isnus, they didn't make that gzera, and therefore he was allowed to bathe the night after his wife passed away. Now, then the Mishnah continued with another exemption. When his slave Tavi passed away, he accepted condolences. So, in the Brisa, many different laws that don't apply to Avadim regarding their death. Avadim Ashvachis, slaves and maidservants, we don't stand in a row, meaning when they come back from the cemetery, and we do it by the cemetery, that people go in rows around the mourners, and they console them. So a row has to have at least 10 people. So the halacha is we don't do that. Now the reason why we don't do that is this answering some of the questions I would ask before, is because if we're going to do that, people might assume that they're regular full-fledged Jews and we're going to be malal yuchsin, which means to say we're going to consider them as full-fledged Jews because you're doing what you do for regular Jews, and that's a problem because their children who are really slaves, people are going to assume are Jewish and people are going to marry them. So therefore we don't do these things that we do for regular Jews. We don't stand in the row for them. We don't say on them the blessing of the mourners, which is a blessing they would do in the street, that they would do what we call Sudas Havara. The first meal you have to eat from other people, and they would bless the mourners over there, and they would bless the consolers, the Gemara says, Ksubas over there in the first paragraph of Chesam and Aleph. You don't do that for a slave that passed away. And for Tanchumei Avelim, neither do you do consolation of the mourners, which we know, Hamakim Menachem. You don't do these three things for the slaves. Now, Maisa, the Gemara actually says that and illustrates this halacha with a story. It was a story of Maisa Shefchasa Shabbaleza. The maidservant of Rebbe passed away. So it's still his possession, just like quote unquote in halacha, a wife is a possession, right? As a kinyan. So his slave is also. They went to console him. When he saw them that they're coming to console him, Allah, he went up to the second story. They followed after him. Nichnis Lampilin, so he went into the anteroom, which is a small room in front of the large room. Nichnus Achrav, they followed him over there. So Nichnis Latrak, they kept on going away from him. They went to the main room. Nichnis Achrav, they went after him. Amalhem, he said to them, Kemedumani, I thought, Shatim Nichvim Bepeshim, that you're going to get burnt with warm water. In other words, I thought that you're going to understand, with a little of a hint, you see me running away, you'll realize, hey, why is Rebbe running away? Obviously, that because we're not supposed to console him. But now he said, Achshav, now, I see you're not getting burnt even with boiling hot water. Don't you get it? Didn't I teach you? Servants and maidservants, you don't stand in the row. You don't say the blessing of the mourners, which is again that Sudas Havara. You don't console the mourner, you don't console the master of the slaves. Rather, what do you say on them? You say the same thing like when the person's other acquisitions, that of his ox or his donkey that passed away, which is God, the place, should replace your loss. That's what you say for the slave and the maidservant. The Hashem should fill up your loss. We don't eulogize a slave or maidservant that passed away. He disagrees. He says, if he was an upstanding slave, you say on him, whoa, like a term of crying and of groaning, a good and trustworthy person, he benefited from his own labor. Whereas Amrulay, they disagreed with Rabbi Yossi. He said to him, if that's the case, what are you leaving for really upstanding people? I mean, to say, if you're saying this on a slave, this is pretty good hesped. So now the Gemara continues a related discussion regarding that of slaves and the concern, like we said, of Taisa before, that we can't treat them like a regular Yisrael because then that's a concern of yichus, of like considering them as full-fledged Jews. Tanmar learned the Brisa, as we'll see shortly why this relates back. In current Avos, we don't call Avos of the Jewish people Ela Shleisha. We don't call fathers only three, which we know, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. They're considered our Avos, and we don't call the 12 Shvatim as our Avos. And the Inkarni Mois, we don't call the mothers Ela Arba, only for them, which is Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Says the Gemara, Avos my time. What's the reason why we only call Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov the Avos? If it's because, we don't know Imi Reuben Kassin. I don't know from Shevet Reuben, Imi Shimon Kassin from Shevet Shimon, and that's why we can't call them our others, because they might not be our fathers, but we all come from Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Says that's the case, then the mothers too. And Leah Dinim Rachel Kassin, we're not coming from Rachel, Imi Leah Kassin, we're coming from Leah. And the rather says Gemara, the reason is because Adhacha Chashivi. Up until this point, they're considered significant. More than that, they're not considered significant. The Shvatim were not as chashiv as the Avos, and therefore don't consider them as the Avos, and that's the same thing for the Imais. Now, Tanidach, we learn another brisa which has a similar idea of chashivas, and that relates back to that of Avadim. Avadim Mishvachais, slaves and maidservants, inkarnais and Abba plain. You don't call them which is the term of chashivas, that the Abba, whatever the name is, Shloimy or Moshe or whatever. The ima plainness, or the female version, meaning we're not talking about their sons. We're talking about a regular person, like we call Mr. this, Mrs. this. So that's what they would say, Abba plain, the ima plainness, which is the term of chashivas. You're not allowed to do that for a slave, because when a regular person calls him Abba Meir, or whatever the name is, then the problem is that people are going to think he's really your father, and they're going to suspect that you're a slave. So therefore, you're not allowed to call a slave by that honorific. But for Shemim Lila, but by Reb Lil's house, so they would call them, yes, Abba plain, Vima plainness. So the Gemara says, Maisa Lister? What do you mean? You bring a story that contradicts Allah. You just said that slaves, you're not allowed to call them Abba or Ima. Says the Gemara, no, Mishum the Chashivi, because they were distinguished, meaning to say, no one's going to suspect that that's your father, because everyone knew that those slaves were honorable people, that you would call them like a regular honorable people, but everyone knew that they're slaves and therefore didn't run into concern. Like we said, the house of Gamliel was different. Again, that's why I brought in the previous teaching regarding this idea of Chashivi. Now, continuing on this theme of Kriyishma, which is the topic of our program over here, Amar Balazi says, what does it mean the pasuk in Tehillim? It says, Kain avarechacha, so says David, I will bless you, b'chayi all my life, b'shimcha esekape, in your name I will lift up my hands. What does that mean? So, Kain avarecha b'chayi, so I will bless you in my life, and my life means learning Torah. Zu Kriyishma, that refers to saying Kriyishma. B'shimcha esekape, in your name I will lift up my palms. Zu Tefillah, that refers to davening. Like we said, that person says Kriyishma and then he davens. If someone does that, says Kriyishma and davens Allah kasavayim, the next pasuk says Kamai chaylev, like that which is fat, v'deshin, and that of abundance. Tis banavshi, say she, it's my soul, which Mefarshim explain chaylev and deshin. That's referring to like as if you brought a carbon, which the fats of the carbon are brought there, and that's the deshin, that's the ashes. Not only that, this person who says Kriyishma and then says Shemona Esrei, he inherits two worlds, this world and the world to come. Because the pasuk ends over there, v'sifsei renanis, and joyous languages, and renanis is in the plural, Yahal pi, my mouth will say praise, which is two times, one in this world and the next world. Now the Gemara starts a discussion which goes all the way through to the next daf with different prayers that the Talmidei Chacham would say after the Shemona Esrei. This is what's classic Agadah. So we start this off because it's actually a continuation of the previous Amayr. Rabbi Lazar was the previous teaching that we just had. So we start with Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar busted this Misayim Tzleisi after he finished his Shemona Esrei, his davening. He would say like this: there should be a will in front of you, Hashem our God, that you should dwell in our portion, ahava va'achva, love and brotherhood, b'shalom v'reis, peace and friendship. You should expand our boundary with students. You should make our end prosper. Achras v'tikva should be that one of a future and of a hope, meaning to say that that our end should be good and we should see what we hope for, that should come true. You should put our portion in Gan Eden. Which is a lashon of tikkun. You should establish us with good friend, with a good inclination in your world. We should get up. We should find the yearning of our heart to fear your name. In other words, our yetzer hara should not overpower us in the thoughts of the night to go ahead and stray after you during the daytime. Many people, when they're going to sleep, they start, all the murush chayda starts coming. It shouldn't happen at a nighttime that it says, forget about this. I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to that daf at 7:15. Rather, you should get up in the morning, and we should find that our heart should still be yearning for you in that morning. And should come in front of you the fulfillment of our soul, meaning we should have what we need and all the desires that we have, l'taiva, for good. That was his tefillah after he finished his prayers. Rabbi Yochanan, after he finished davening, he would say like this: there should be your will in front of you, Hashem our God. You should gaze at our embarrassment. You should behold the evil, meaning you should know and you should pay attention to the evil that comes to us on top of us. Meaning you see how much suffering we go through. But you should clothe yourself with mercy. And you should cover yourself with strength. And you should wrap yourself with your kindness. And you should gird yourself with your graciousness. And it should come in front of you your attribute of goodness and that of humility. Now, Reb Zeru, who the Mefarshim explained was a Mekarev, so he was involved with people, let's say, that were not as on his spiritual level. So Basid Mitzayim Tzlusei, and that's how it should be. A person should have, when he makes his own private prayer, it should be uniquely for him, for his needs. So Basid Mitzayim Tzlusei, after he finishes davening, he would say like this: there should be in front of you your will, Hashem our God. We shouldn't sin. We should not be ashamed. We shouldn't be disgraced from our fathers. Reb Chia, who he was a Marbitz Torah, Basid the Matzlei, after he finished davening, he would say like this: there should be your will in front of you, Hashem our God, that your Torah should be our job, our craft, our preoccupation, and our heart should not be pained, and our eyes shouldn't be darkened. Rav Basid Tzleisei, Rav, after he finished davening, he would say like this: there should be your will in front of you, Hashem our God, and you might recognize this prayer. You should give us long life. Chaim shel shalom, life of peace. Chaim shel teva, life of goodness. Chaim shel bracha, life of blessing. Chaim shel parnasa, life of sustenance, of a parnasa. Chaim shel chilul tzatzamas, a life of a strengthening of the bones. Chaim shesh b'm yir schet, a life that has the fear of sin. Chaim she'em b'm busha chlima, a life that does not have embarrassment and of disgrace. Chaim shel esha b'chavod, life of wealth and of honor. Chaim shel tevana habas Torah b'yishmayim, life that we should love Torah and the fear of heaven. Chaim shetemal alon is called mashal sabeno Torah, a life that you will fulfill all the requests that we have in our heart for the good. The reason why you recognize this is because we say this by when we bench Rish Chodesh on the Shabbos before Rish Chodesh, we say this tefillah. Now, Rebbe, who was a wealthy person, after he davened, he would say this, and you're going to recognize this prayer also that we say in the morning time. You will in front of you, Hashem, our God, and the God of our fathers. You should save us from brazen individuals, meaning to say that they shouldn't start up with me. And from the trait of brazenness, meaning to say that people should not suspect me from mamzeris, from having illegitimate ancestry, which is that those are the type of people that are they're the brazenness. Mi adamra, you should save us from a bad person. Mi pegara, from a bad occurrence. Mi yetzara, from a bad inclination. Mi chavara, from a bad friend. Mi shachamra, from a bad neighbor. Mi sadamashches, from a destructive prosecutor. Umidin kasha, from a harsh judgment. Umibaldin kasha, from a harsh litigant. Beinshu ben bris, whether this person I'm contending with is a person of the covenant. Beinshu ein ben bris, whether he's not a person of the covenant, meaning whether he's not circumcised. Now the Gemara comments, this is, you see how strong his prayer was, even though Antoninus, who was the Caesar, appointed guards to protect Rebbe, that people shouldn't start up with him. You see how afraid he still was, that he still had this prayer that please don't let me people start up with me, these Azri Pun, these brazen individuals. They're difficult even for such a person like Rebbe. Now, Rav Safra, after he finished davening, he would say like this: you will in front of you, Hashem our God. Shalom, you should put peace, as we continue to Rabbi Zayin and Alf, in the assembly up above, meaning in the assembly of the malachim of the nations. Meaning, when the angels of on top, when there's a fight between them, then immediately there's a fight between the nations over here. As the pasuk says, the Malach Gabriel says, now I'm going to go back to fight with the Sar of Paras, as it says in Sefer Daniel, where it's all happening up there, whatever that means, and that therefore we want peace to be up there. Obepamal Shamata, and there should also be peace down here, means to say amongst the assembly of the sages, that there should be peace down here. And between the students that toil in your Torah, whether they toil for its sake, whether they toil not for its sake. Now, and part of its prayer was, whoever is toiling in Torah, not for its sake, let it be their will, that your will, that they toil for the sake of Torah, not for any ulterior motive. So some of the ideas we spoke about in today's Daf, in Beruchas Daf Tezayin, was we finished off the previous Mishnah, that one of the 4 halachas said in the previous Mishnah was karbatav. If someone's reading Shema and he made a mistake, so chayzer, so you go back to where you made the mistake. But then our Gemara discussed, what's if Ein Yedei? Let's say he doesn't know where he made the mistake. So it's a daraisa, so chayzer l'rosh, you got to go back to the beginning of where you start to make sure you said the right words. Now, the question was, let's say uchsavtim, you don't know which uchsavtim you're about to get up to. So then we said, so harishin, you got to go back to the first uchsavtim because we don't know which one you're up to. Now, then the Brisa said that's specifically in the first 2 parashas, which Rabbi Yochanan told to the teacher of the Brises. But Vayomer, he said, is different because it's shagar befiv, it's fluent. Now, there's like we said, 2 interpretations in the Rishonim. Either it means to say, like Rashi said, that in Vayomer no one makes a mistake. If you said it, you for sure said it the right way, you could go all the way to emes v'yatzeh. Or like commonly known in the Rishonim is that of, if you don't know how you got here, so then we assume if you said Laman Yir B'Yemechem, you probably said the right Uchsavtem, and you didn't get mixed up in the first one. You're saying it out of habit, out of rote, and therefore you got up to the right one. If you said Laman Yir B'Yemechem, you could assume you said it right, and you could continue going, you don't have to go back. Then we continue with the next Mishnah, again, continuing the theme about Kavanah. We said that Umnan, specifically Umnan, those are workers, they could say Krishma on the top of a tree because, hey, to come down from the tree, it's going to waste a lot of time from work, they'll let us stay on top. That's for Krishma, but not for davening. Davening really requires thought, and therefore that you can't do on top of a tree. Additional halacha the Mishnah said was a chassan is exempt from Krishma all the way up until Matzah Shabbos because he can't focus, he can't have kavanah to say Krishma. Rabbi Gamliel did say Krishma, and he says, I'm not going to accept that to be mevatel omach shemayim. I want to every moment have accepting the yoke of God, and I'm going to say Krishma every night I get married. Now the Gemara brought a brisa that said that workers, although we said in the Mishnah they can't daven on the top of a tree, but if it's like a tree that's beresh hazayis, which has all huge branches and it's like a whole network of branches that you're not going to fall off easily, then you're allowed to even daven there on the top. But a balabais, a self-employed person, he's got to come down because ultimately it's not the same type of a kavanah on top of a tree as it is on the bottom, so he has to come down. The Gemara then asked the contradiction, does Kriya Shema require Kavana? On the one hand, you're telling me that in our Mishnah that he could go ahead and by tefillah we said he has to come down. But then we brought a brayse that says that he could stay on top of a tree and say his Kriya Shema. So do you need to have Kavana or not? So the Gemara says yes. In our Mishnah said that you could daven, that you on Kriya Shema you could stay on top of a tree is only when you're betelim and malachtim occurring. You could say Kriya Shema on top of a tree, but you can't be working as you're on top of the tree. Now, then the Gemara asked another stira, which sound like from Beis Hill. What do you mean? Oiskim and malachtim occurring, you can continue doing your work and you can say Kriya Shema. So Gemara says yes. Beis Hill was going in the second parasha of Kriya Shema. But when we're saying in our Mishnah that you could say Kriya Shema on top of a tree as long as you're not working, is in the first chapter. So two ideas. One, yes, you can go ahead and say it on the top of a tree, but you have to stop doing the work when you're saying it on the tree. Additionally, when did we say you have to stop doing it? It's only in the first parak. In the second parak, you continue doing your work. The second prakim, you could, like Beis Hill says, you continue doing what you're doing. That took us into other workers' leniencies, that no matter what type of worker you are, you can't go in Dav Amid, you can't do Nesis Kapayim. Again, that's in Talmudic times. Today's times is different. But in Talmudic times, you had obligations to your employer. You can't just do these things. Now, but then there was seemingly a contradiction. One brisa says that he could daven Shmoneh Esrei, a regular Shmoneh Esrei. The other one says he has to daven the bridge Shmoneh Esrei. So they might have two answers. Either it's Yom Leal, who always says you have to daven the regular Shmoneh Esrei, and that's Rabbi Shua, who says you could also always daven in the bridge one. But then the Gemara says, if it's always, why are you telling me specifically a worker? So the Gemara says, you're right. The difference is that Oisim B'Sudasin, if they're just getting a meal ticket, not getting paid any money, okay, not really getting paid, so then you could have a full Shmoneh Esrei. If they're Oisim B'Scharin, as the Gemara then brought a brayse that showed the difference, you're getting paid money, you got to do the bridge Shmoneh Esrei. You can't just do a regular Shmoneh Esrei. Then we went and explained the halacha of our Mishnah that said Chassan is patur from Kriya Shema. How do we know that? As we said this in the previous daf, you're going is mamayid and says when you're doing your own thing, then you have to. When you're doing Hashem's thing, like getting married, then you have to say Kriya Shema. The Gemara qualified specifically by Basula, who's tiered to the mitzvah. He's preoccupied and that of a mitzvah, and therefore that excludes the widow who's not tarid, and regarding an oval and tavas minas bayam, that's not a mitzvah purpose. Then we said the next Mishnah, which continued this of Rabbi Glil being an exception, and was regarding these two halachas, that an oval is forbidden to bathe. He did bathe, because he said, I'm a istanis, and one's not allowed to accept tanchumah for their slaves, and he did accept for his slave, because he said his slave is different, there's a kasha. Then we continue with the previous Mishnah's halacha of a chassan saying Kriya Shema, although we said he doesn't have to, because he doesn't have kavanah, but machlekes if he wants to say, if he's allowed to. Then the Gemara brought to explain the first halacha of this Mishnah, that he bathed. How did he bathe? He's an oval. Because he held Aninas Laila the night after the wife passed away, it's only rabbinic, and since he's an istanis, legaza be'rabbanan. Then regarding this halacha of Eimanach me'alavadim, rather we said from Taisis, because of concerns about yichus, you can't do like a regular Jew, and rather you say Hamakim Yimalech Esreincha, and then we concluded, which is going to be the whole discussion in the next daf, different tefillas that different Talmidei Chacham would say after they finished davening. Thank you to any time for hosting us.